3 Americans and a permanent resident are on their way home tonight after the U.S. secured their release from prison in Russia. The moment 4 American prisoners were freed from jail was captured by Russian media. The deal includes Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich, who was sentenced to 16 years on espionage charges just 2 weeks ago. U.S. Marine veteran Paul Whelan, who's been in prison for nearly 6 years, Russian-American journalist Alsu Kumasheva, and U.S. resident Vladimir Karamursa.
It's an incredible relief for all the family members gathered here. It's a relief to the friends and colleagues all across the country who've been praying for this day for a long time.
Olivia Gazis has been on top of this story for us. Olivia, the swap includes 24 people with several different countries involved. How did it all come together?
Absolutely, Scott. Well, American officials have been describing this swap as the most complex in modern history, certainly the most complex and complicated in U.S., Russia, and even U.S. Soviet history, which is notable given how many spy swaps were done during the Cold War and thereafter. And that is because, as you say, there were more than 6 countries involved, 24 prisoners. And the types of prisoners, these were not just spies. These were political prisoners that the Russians were free to handle more capriciously. And we've since learned about some of the intense diplomacy that was spearheaded mainly by the White House and the State Department to convince other Western allies, including, crucially, Poland, Slovenia, Norway, and Germany, which was the linchpin, who were holding people of interest to the Russians in order to sort of sweeten the deal and facilitate the swap. You also had to enlist Turkey as a sort of neutral territory for it all to take place. And that's in addition to the multiple agencies that had to deal with different parts of all of these governments in order to take everything over the finish line.
So when you have multiple agencies doing some big thing, it often gets pretty thorny. Who handled the negotiations here on our end?
Sure. Well, the White House and the State Department principally handled the outreach to the friendly countries, the Western nations that were holding prisoners of interest to Russia. We have since learned that the State Department Secretary Blinken tried to convince the Russians to deal in diplomatic channels so as not to give credence to these baseless accusations the U.S. maintained that Paul and Evan were engaged in any sort of espionage. The Russians rejected that. They said, no, we caught Evan red-handed, for example, Lavrov told Blinken, and we want to deal in what they refer to as the special channel, the intelligence channel, which the CIA has run in the past and ran this time around. So instead, you had CIA Director William Burns dealing directly with his intelligence counterparts in Russia, the FSB and the SVR, the heads of those organizations. We know that he made a crucial phone call to arrive at a deal in principle in early July, and that the special channel, the senior CIA officials and Russian officials who thereafter sort of finalized the deal, would meet in a third country in order to negotiate and for the U.S. negotiators to put down their position.
When he spoke early this afternoon about the prisoner swap, the president talked about the importance of allies to achieving this exchange. Take a listen.
So for anyone who questions whether allies matter, they do. They matter. And today is a powerful example of why it's vital to have friends in this world.
From your reporting, Olivia, how does this fit into the president's approach to getting wrongfully detained Americans released?
Sure. Well, it's very important, of course, as the president said, to have friends who will do you favors. And these are big favors, right? These are countries that have put resources towards capturing, prosecuting, and convicting, imprisoning Russian nationals from a foreign country. It's happened before. In the case of Trevor Reed, who was traded for Konstantin Yoroshenko, a Russian pilot, we got him from Liberia. In the case of Brittany Griner, we traded Victor Boot, who came to us from Thailand, a convicted arms dealer. So those were not trades that the U.S. could make itself. It had to call in those favors. But it can, over time, if you ask a favor too much, disincentivize these countries who are, again, going to costs to capture these nationals only to have them handed over to the U.S. and ultimately handed over back to the Russians. So while it's good to have friends who will do you favors, it's important not to ask those favors too much.
All right, Olivia Gazis, great work. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
President Biden and Vice President Harris will greet the Americans freed from Russia tonight. The likely Democratic nominees celebrated this swap, speaking earlier today.
We never stopped fighting for their release. And today, in spite of all of their suffering, it gives me great comfort to know that their horrible ordeal is finally over.
Let's bring in Robert Costa and Ed O'Keefe join us now. Break down what happened today. Another historic day. Ed, what's the political significance to the vice president of all this?
It was notable that the White House went out of its way to point out that she did play at least a bit part in these negotiations. Attending the Munich Security Conference earlier this year, spoke with the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, who was a guy that needed to be really convinced in person by the president and apparently again by the vice president in the spring. Obviously, that was designed to not only demonstrate that she, too, was involved, but to burnish her foreign policy credentials at a time that a lot of voters are starting to wonder, well, could she do this? Could she pull something like this off? And clearly, today was designed to demonstrate, at least from the White House's perspective and her team's perspective, that she could.
No surprise, no shortage of immediate reaction from lots of folks, including J.D. Vance, while campaigning in Arizona. Let's listen to what he said, then I'll ask you a question after.
I think it's great to have Evan and Paul back in our country. And I think importantly, there's a real sense that the world leaders are afraid that if Donald Trump comes in, they're going to have to start behaving again. And so I really think that this is a response to the likelihood that Donald Trump will be reelected.
Bobby's saying it's in part because of the likelihood Donald Trump will be elected. Donald Trump, meanwhile, on social media, blasted the deal. What do you make of the contrast or the symmetry between those two statements?
Well, for the Trump-Vance campaign, this is a day to endure and carry on. This is a day where the incumbent president, President Biden and Vice President Harris, are so clearly in the spotlight. This is an administrative effort to secure the release of these hostages. They can argue about the political capital on the foreign stage of former President Trump and what might happen should he win the White House again. And this goes to their argument that they will have a stronger foreign policy if he wins the White House again. Trump's notably not an interventionist on foreign policy. It's more about the projection of strength, and they continue, as they did in Harrisburg last night. I was covering Trump's rally there, like to cast the Biden administration as weak. But so far, this is not an election where foreign policy is playing a huge role. But as you say, every day seems to be historic. Something could happen tomorrow on foreign policy. And this is more of a legacy achievement for President Biden, just weeks after he made his decision to leave the Democratic race. This is part of someone who was the Senate Foreign Relations Committee chairman, bolstering his case for history that he was always engaged on foreign policy from his days in the Senate until now.
In fact, on that point, two things stuck out when we were in the room today for this event. First, he stuck around and took several questions designed to speak to how this is a legacy burnishing day. In a campaign mode, he might not have done so. Would have been a little more cautious, as the vice president was when she left Houston. But making clear, look, family is my beginning, my middle, my end. And I was trying to get these families reunited, these poor Americans who've been waiting hundreds of days for their families to get back. The other telling part of this, when we were leaving the event, going back to the press pen, if you will, senior administration official I saw said, "How you doing?" He goes, "Did you guys notice that detail in all this about how the president made a call to one of his counterparts just an hour before he announced to the world he wasn't running again, while everyone was questioning whether or not he could actually be president? You guys going to mention that tonight, that he actually can do the job, even though people, including you guys in the press, are raising doubts?" It shows you they got a bit of a chip on their shoulder right now over there, as they're quite proud of today, but also realize they don't get to do this much longer.
Well, Ed keeps winning here at CBS News with the Rehoboth Beach assignment. There was a lot happening in Rehoboth Beach during that final weekend when he's making this decision. We keep
July
learning
21st.
more. Yeah. It's going to be a day in history, just like March 31st, 1968, when LBJ stepped away. He was doing so much in Rehoboth Beach, in this beach house. Not the center of the world, with all respect, a beautiful place, but certainly a place now where much was going down.
Only be winning if we could actually go to the beach and not be working by the beach.
So close, yet so far away. It's a big campaign day for the vice president, too. Today, explain why.
Well, she was in Texas wrapping up this visit to see Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee spoke at her funeral, notably flanked by the Clintons, by House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and several other black political leaders. One of the first chances to see her as sort of the star of an event, although she made clear it was the Congresswoman who was the star of that event. But beyond that, we know the vetting process continues. At least 6 men now in the mix, 4 governors, a cabinet secretary, a senator, and probably others who haven't necessarily been revealed because we've been told the Harris team is telling them, lie low, don't necessarily be out there taking questions.
The lack of visibility is a sign we're close to something.
Yeah, yeah. And look, you know, she has essentially till next Tuesday, Wednesday to do this. So it's a really truncated timeline. It's risk prone because normally this is something that takes months, right? Or at least several more weeks. And she's really only had about 2 weeks to make a decision.
And it's notable that the UAW got behind Vice President Harris before she makes her pick. In case there's any grumbles on the labor side after the pick, well, the endorsement's already been made. And just a note about Sheila Jackson Lee. We covered her on Capitol Hill. You know, we'll miss Sheila Jackson Lee, whether you like her politics or didn't like her politics. She was a presence. She was always accessible to reporters. She had a strong personality. She was someone you couldn't help but talk to if you saw her in the hallways. And rest in peace, Congresswoman.
They could rename the House floor after Sheila Jackson Lee. There was no stronger presence or more reliable presence speaking on the floor than Congresswoman Lee. Thank you both. Lots to do today, more to come.